Good evening. Welcome to the Atelier with Alina Cho. I'm Andrew Bolton, curator in charge of the Costume Institute, and it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce tonight's guest, Christopher John Rogers. Christopher was born in Baton Rouge in Louisiana and graduated from the Savannah College of Art and Design with a BFA in fashion in 2016. After graduating, he moved to New York, working as a designer at Diane von Furstenberg during the day and making his own custom-made clothes in the evenings. He staged his first runway show in September 2019, and 2 months later, he won the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. The following year, he was named the CFDA Emerging Designer of the Year, and last year, he won the CFDA Women's Wear Designer of the Year. Christopher's designs are instantly recognizable for their color, the shape, and the volume. And he calls his aesthetic pragmatic glamour, a sensibility that merges the dramatic with the practical. As a designer, he's both cerebral and emotional, traits that manifest themselves in his very diverse sources of inspiration, which range from jello molds to 18th century Rococo paintings. And the pink plaid ball gown that we recently showed in the exhibition in America, A Lexicon of Fashion, was actually inspired by the look and feel of trash bags and curtains. And this dismantling of aesthetic hierarchies is also evident in the piece we have on display currently, which is a meticulously cut and constructed ball gown made from very simple white cotton. And for me, these visual paradoxes are what ultimately define Christopher's work, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity this evening to hear more about his design process and his inspirations. Alina is an Emmy award-winning journalist with more than 20 years of experience. She is currently a contributor to CBS Sunday Morning and the producer of the upcoming Netflix documentary on Martha Stewart. And previously, Alina was a national correspondent for CNN, where she hosted Fashion Backstage Pass. We're grateful to the Doris and Stanley Tannenbaum Foundation for making this series possible. Doris was a great friend of the Met, and we're very fortunate that her daughter, Ricky Gail Conway, chose to sponsor this series in her honor. So please join me in welcoming Christopher and Alina.
Hello. Wow, I love that skirt in the front row. That is really fabulous. Good evening, everyone. I am so happy to be here. How are you feeling?
A little nervous, but excited.
Yeah, I know. You said it backstage you were screaming on the inside a little bit, but that's okay. It's okay. It's all fun. It's all fun tonight. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm so excited that all of you are here tonight. It's so great to see so many friends in the audience. And I'm most excited for all of you to get to know the man next to me, Christopher John Rogers, who by all accounts has had a meteoric rise in fashion. This is your first live interview, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And some people might find that surprising, but if you think about it, Chris is just 28 years old. So maybe it's not that much of a surprise. Before we get started, because there's so much that we want to discuss, I do want to extend a personal thank you to my Met sponsor and friend, Ricky Gail Conway. Her granddaughter, Sophie, is in the audience tonight. Hi, Sophie. And also 2 more notes. We are live streaming on the Met's Facebook page and on YouTube, so welcome to all of you watching online. And one important note, I know there's a lot of students in the audience. We are hoping to be able to take a couple of audience questions at the end of the discussion. I know, Chris, you're excited about that. So we will try to keep it moving tonight. With that, let's get started. So let's talk about the Met Gala, which is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
As you know, that celebrates the opening of the Costume Institute exhibition.
Yes.
It's called In America, an Anthology of Fashion. And this is part 2 of a 2-part exhibit. Mm-hmm. This is really going to be focusing on the history of American fashion. Yeah. Part 1 focuses more on modern day designers like yourself. And as you very well know, you have 2 gowns in the exhibit. One on exhibit right now, which is this beautiful white gown, if we could put up on the screen. That's what's on display right now if you go see the exhibit, which I encourage you to do if you haven't seen. And then before that, because some items had to be rotated out for conservation reasons, there was an unbelievable plaid gown, which really was the first thing you saw as you walked down those stairs.
Which
and
is
what
insane.
Insane. And what I'm told is among the, if not the most photographed gowns of the entire exhibition. So let's talk about these two beautiful dresses. Tell me about how these came to life. And also, how do you feel having these two dresses displayed in what's arguably the most important museum in the world?
I mean, still screaming, internally and externally. This look, actually, it's a top and a skirt, which is something that I really love. I love the fact that someone can sort of break this look up if it were to be purchased and sort of wear it with a white t-shirt or wear the top with denim, I think is really exciting and feels modern. But this is actually inspired by trash bags and just like that visual texture. I think whether you're looking at like an 18th century painting or like a garbage bag that's blowing in the wind in Brooklyn, I think that visual texture is what's exciting more so than the subject itself. So that was something that I was really trying to like excavate in this body of work, which was Fall 20.
Yeah, I think, do you all hear that static on the mic? Yeah, maybe the audio people should bring out some hand mics. Yeah, you want to, is that better?
I think it's better. Is this better?
Oh,
yeah?
much better.
Okay, we love that.
Trained ear, all those
Yeah.
So it's interesting because you talk about being inspired by trash bags, and I know you talk about having and liking your clothes to have a little crunch, right?
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting is we were talking backstage, and I said, I love this dress that I'm wearing so much, and I said, what is it that gives this, volume to the piece? And you said there's actually
horsehair in the bottom.
Horsehair in it, which is pretty amazing. I never would have thought, but well, that's why you're you, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about the Met Gala, because last September, you made your Met Gala debut.
Yes, my first time.
I mean, how nerve-wracking is it walking up those steps?
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because your date was Jordan Alexander, the actress. Talk about how you met and this beautiful ensemble, because I know you had a really clear vision about what you wanted that to be, right?
Yeah, so we actually met on the set of Gossip Girl, which we filmed like not last December, but the December before. She's so sweet, so down to earth. We actually live down the street from each other in Brooklyn, I think. But she's a darling, and so this look was kind of inspired, again, by something that felt a little archival, some sort of
you said like
bustled,
Venus de Milo.
like some sort of bustled evening confection thing. And so we kind of wanted it to be abstract. I think something that we always try and do in the work is make something that combines a lot of different references so it feels timeless or like anti-time, if that makes sense. And so that was kind of like the impetus for this look. We actually had a top that went with this look, but in the fitting we thought that the corset underneath just looked so clean with the skirt.
Oh, that's so funny. It looks like you planned it that way all along.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's funny because, again, we were talking just a few minutes ago, and I said, I loved that skirt that Jordan wore. I wish you would make it commercially. And you said...
We're actually making 2 iterations of it for the next collection. So.
Which comes out?
Later this summer.
You know what I'm going to ask you, right?
What?
So tell us about it. Like, what can you tell us? Give us a clue. What inspired you for this collection, and what might we see? Yeah.
I think for this new collection, lately I've been kind of just thinking about like the mark that my team and I are trying to make on fashion and fashion history. And I think more than like any one reference, it's kind of about like energy and all the things that we've done before and like investigating them further, and always color is always a starting point for me. So it's really been like an emotional journey making this collection.
So you really, when you're designing, you're thinking, I want this to be for the ages.
Yeah, and I kind of want to, I'm inspired by so many different things and so many different designers and art and music, but I kind of want the work that I put out to be undeniably me and to be informed by all the different little nuances and idiosyncrasies of the things that I love, and for it to not look like anyone else's work.
Well, I think this is what makes your work stand out so much, right? Is because people look at it and they say, this doesn't seem derivative of somebody else's work, and I think that's why you've received, a big reason why you've received the accolades that you've received.
Thank you.
Which I want to get to right now. So this has been a wild year for you. This has been a crazy 12 months.
Yeah.
Just 6 months ago, you won the equivalent, for those of you in the room, sorry about the strap here. For those of you in the room who aren't familiar with this, the CFDA award that Christopher won, the CFDA Women's Wear Designer of the Year award, is really like winning the Oscar, right? In terms of American fashion, there's nothing bigger. You won it last year. You beat out people like Marc Jacobs, maybe you've heard of him, and Gabriella Hearst, who held the crown the year earlier. Mm-hmm. Take me back to that moment. Do you remember what you were feeling when they called your name?
Disbelief, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think that I always try and not think so much about like awards and accolades and the things that have happened to like me and my team who are like sitting right there, I think. I started the company in 2016 with my graduate collection, and we released our first collection, I believe, in 2018. And to like go from like cutting fabric, like $5 a yard fabric in our kitchen to like winning that award is insane. And I think I'm finally like just processing it right now.
I was going to say, it's really, it's almost hard to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 years ago, less than 6 years ago, you were graduating from college, and I want to talk about that. But I'm just curious to know, because you said you sort of try not to let it get to you, but it's undeniable. You are the darling of the fashion industry right now. And I'm curious to know how you take that all in, because you've remained so humble, which is one of the reasons why I adore you. But also I think, it's a really tricky place to be in, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if, first, how it feels, and also, does it worry you?
Yeah. I think I'm like acutely aware of the comings and goings of like fashion darlings. And so I try my best to not dip into trends or look too much to what is happening to the left of me or the right of me, or even like what's happening to me, if that makes sense. Like some of my favorite designers, I think Ms. Rocky, Todd Oldham, have like come and gone, some because of business reasons or because they just decided to like chop it, like, girl, it's a lot, which I get.
Girl, that's a lot. That's what he said.
It's a lot. And so I think I try and just keep my head down and focus on the work and like celebrate with like people who are actually my friends and like go out to the spots that we want to go out to and just keep it cute and like keep it like small and like not think so much about everything.
I'm learning so much tonight. I mean, from this younger generation, there's a whole new language. let's I think, like I said, and like everyone is fully aware of now, you've had such a fast rise, and you've managed to keep your head squarely on your shoulders, which I love. But I think a lot of people are interested to know, how did you get here? Where did you start? So you were born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I'm curious to know what your childhood... Exactly.
Same me, same girl.
That's a Chris approved photo.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what your childhood was like, and also, when did you first get interested in fashion? Was it something specific that happened? Because I know you're a child of the internet, right?
For sure. I think a lot of different things played into my ultimate wanting to be a designer. I think one of the biggest moments was in 4th grade when like my friends and I used to just draw little comic books in class during break. And my friend Catherine noticed that one of the characters that we were drawing always had the same outfit on. And so like Spider-Man never changed his outfit. Like Snoopy always looked like Snoopy. So I never really investigated the idea of like designing clothes or thinking too much about what people were wearing. And so we started like sketching looks and considering like proportion and color and like what that meant for the character.
So your first designs were for cartoon characters?
Essentially, yeah, which I think I kind of still do today. But yeah, that was like the first impetus, or like that's kind of like where it started.
And how old were you, would you say?
11?
Did you say fourth? You said
fourth grade?
I think. You said fourth grade.
Or 10.
And I know that your grandmother, who died when you were very young, was a big fashion influence on you, right? So
For sure.
How so?
Well, I think like a lot of the things that I keep with me today, and they don't like directly influence me, but like when I'm asked this question, I have to go back and investigate like how I bring those old influences, or the old things that I saw, into my current work.
Right, you have to think about it.
Yeah, and I think like her affinity for like monochromatic ensembles, like whether she was going to church or like going to the grocery store, like the green sweater had to match the green capri, had to match the green sandal, had to match the green bag, and it had to be the same tone.
But you know, it's interesting because you see a lot of that in your work today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You love this monochromatic, this idea of monochromatic dressing, but always with a little bit of a twist.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And I think like I picked up on that specifically with two things. The first sort of being, like if I was going to church, I had to obviously like match. And so like my shirt would be olive green, but my tie would be like lime green with a print. So that was my way of like sort of like fucking it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then like shows like Power Rangers, like all of the, like everything they wore would be one color throughout the series, whether they were like in drag, like in full like costume or not. And I just like that idea of like committing to something and like committing aesthetically speaking.
Well, you committed very early to your looks,
Yeah.
and obviously your love of color.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your college years, because as Andrew pointed out in the introduction, you ended up at the very well-respected SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. But you had an interesting road in terms of how you got there.
Yeah.
And it involves the mail service. So tell me what happened. How did you end up at SCAD?
So I only applied to 3 schools, I think, Parsons, FIT, and SCAD. I was only going to apply to Parsons and FIT, American, fashion, etc. And then my friend, Brianna, actually went to SCAD, and she was like, it's amazing, you should tour it, you should check it out.
But you really, do I have this right? You really had your heart set on
Parsons.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So then what happened? Because you applied for early decision to all of these
To all of
schools,
them,
right?
yeah.
Because you wanted to know.
I wanted to know, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I got into FIT and SCAD, and so then I was like, oh, it's kind of weird. I was like, well, I was just kind of like, okay, you know, I guess like it is what it is, and like I hadn't
The
heard.
world is telling me something.
Yeah, and I also hadn't heard back.
Right.
So then, like, literally, I think it was our graduation week from high school. I got a letter in the mail saying, "Oh my gosh, your acceptance letter was like lost in the mail, but this is like your second acceptance letter
From
for
Parsons. From Parsons.
And
by then you had already accepted the
SCAD.
SCAD,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But you ended up really sort of appreciating your time there, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't be the designer that I am if I didn't go to school there, and I definitely I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone there.
Why do you say that? Why? What
Well,
was it about that experience?
Well, 3 of my closest friends and people that actually still work for me today, we all met
Your
there.
partners?
Yeah, we all met at SCAD. And I think like learning about fashion in a Southern environment, which I was really familiar with, I think allowed me to continue exploring myself and not being super influenced by like having to take the subway every day, having to walk everywhere. Like I had a car, so I could wear whatever I wanted to class. I could take all of my clothes and put them in the trunk and like go wherever I needed to go from class. So I think, I think that was like a big part of why I think my work looks the way that it
But
does.
you were also really challenged. I mean, I know that not everybody sort of got what you were doing, and there was one professor in particular who had some pretty harsh words for you. Do you remember what he said and how you took it at the time?
I do, yeah. So, which is fair. I think I was like applying to like a scholarship competition, and I was always kind of scared to bring my work to the people that were like deciding whether or not you got in, because I knew that what I was trying to put forward wasn't necessarily like popular at the time. So this was like 2010.
So this was a time where minimalism sort of reigned.
Minimalism,
right?
black, leather, denim, etc.
And you were not doing that.
I was not giving that. Yeah.
So what did this professor say to you?
The work was tacky. It was outdated. Like, who would wear this? Which, I mean, at the time, I guess, like, it could have come off that way, so. But also, like, it wasn't, so, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, it obviously wasn't. We're looking at pictures of your, sketches from your...
This is my senior thesis.
Yeah, from your senior thesis collection, but I'm curious to know, there are a lot of people who would have taken that criticism and sort of, I guess my point is it's easy to believe the bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
So how did you not sort of hear that criticism and think to yourself, oh, well, maybe this person's right. Maybe I need to change my tune. You stuck to your guns, but what was it? I mean, was it just that you were so clear in what you believed, or what was it?
I mean, I think, like, my parents have always instilled in me, like, hard work will take you anywhere that you want to go. And so I kind of knew that, like, from studying fashion history, that the things that I were proposing, the things I were, anyway, what I was putting forward wasn't necessarily, like, had been done before in a way, obviously not in this combination. So I was like, it's not, like, it doesn't make sense for now. And I also had really amazing professors who did understand where I was coming from and really pushed me forward and said, you're really talented and you have a really strong point of view, like, you should continue doing this thing.
To the point where, wasn't there one professor who basically tried to give you advice and said, but you're gonna do what you want anyway?
Yeah, that's my favorite professor, well, one of my favorite professors of all time. His name is Dean Sidaway.
Shout out to Dean.
Shout out to Dean.
Let's talk about what happened after you graduated. So you graduated, this is so unbelievable, you graduated in 2016. It's like 6 years ago. It's great. Yeah, I did my research. So you moved to New York, you moved to Brooklyn, and you were waiting tables because you were trying to look for a job in fashion, but couldn't find one. So it really wasn't until the next year, right, that you landed at DVF, Dion von Furstenberg. So talk about that experience, because I know at the same time that you were working there, you were sewing your own stuff at night in your kitchen, right? So I think it was clear, even back then, when you were starting out, that you had a clear vision, you had something to say, and there was something that you wanted to show to the world, right? So what was that? What was that so-called white space that you thought didn't exist? Because obviously you were making something that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I call it pragmatic glamour, and I think it's kind of about making, at least for me, like, making work that allows for people to express themselves in the real world, or often in the real world. So whether it's like a wide leg pant and silk file that's color blocked, it's still a trouser with 2 legs. You can wear it with, like, a tank top or white shirt or a corset, if we propose that. I don't know, just like things that are expressive and fun and, like, encouraged the wearer to take up space.
Well, and I think it's clear by looking at the photos up there that you love color. You embrace color. It's one of the hallmarks of your designs. And I'm curious to know, because so many designers run away from color, you run toward it. But in a sea of women wearing black everywhere, particularly in New York, why is color so important to you? Because a lot of times you hear black sells. Right?
I just think it's, like, the way that I see the world. And I like to treat color as object. So it's kind of about the color in a certain proportion as an object and like proposing that thing and like what's the right thing for the color. I don't know, it's the way that like I have to exist.
Did I read this correctly that two of your style icons were Bert and Ernie?
Iconic.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But I get it, right? You see the stripes? But what is it about Bert and Ernie?
Their sense of humor, their love for one another, their love for stripes and color, and crazy hair.
Right.
I don't know, they're just cute. They're cute.
Let's talk about some of your celebrity moments. Well, I want to talk about one in particular. We'll go more in depth later, but your first big celebrity that you dressed was
Cardi B.
Cardi B.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have a first celebrity.
Yeah.
So not only did Cardi B wear this fabulous coat from your graduation collection,
Yeah.
She wore it to the BET Awards in 2017.
Yeah.
I mean, you were just out of college. How did this happen?
So I just got a DM from her stylist asking if they could borrow the coat, and no one had really worn it before, and it was a really special piece
It is
for
a special
me.
piece.
And so we were kind of like, yeah, sure, why not? And this was before she was like who she is today.
Really?
Yeah.
So this was before the Cardi B explosion.
For sure. Well, this performance was like the explosion.
Oh, interesting.
Well, like part of it.
Yeah.
Like it was a really good performance. But I was like, yeah, sure. And so then I was at work at the time, so I brought the fur coat to work, put it in like a little carry-out bag.
Didn't you like take the subway or something and deliver it or hand deliver it? Or
That was a different.
Oh, okay,
different
sorry.
look.
Okay,
But,
anyway, so you got it to her.
got it to her.
And she wore it.
And she wore it.
And
yeah.
then what happened after?
Well, that was like the first time that I really felt like the power of Instagram, I think. I think at the time I had maybe like 7,000 followers, and then I got 5,000 that day, which was insane.
That day?
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, like that's all. Yeah.
I know that you have often said that DM button,
Yeah. We love a DM. We love a DM. I mean,
let's talk about that, because I mean you've dressed a lot of celebrities just because somebody will randomly DM you, right?
yeah. And also I think but when I moved to New York, I really used, my dad is, he works in technology, and he always taught me to use the computer as a tool. So when I moved to New York, I used Instagram to sort of search the names of stylists that I really respected, and then instead of DMing them, I emailed them. But like that was my way of sort of like discovering how to contact people, and yeah.
Oh, look at you being so resourceful. I did not know that. That's amazing. Well, that's how you get it done, right?
Yeah.
You
exactly.
got to do it
Do what you can
yourself,
do.
and you got to take initiative. And if you don't ask, you don't get. Right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about what happened after that, because as you said, you picked up 5,000 followers that day on Instagram. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, what didn't happen as a result of that were sales.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't pick up any retailers. You were kind of on the radar, but not really yet.
Yeah.
And it was still so very early until your presentation in the fall of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what happened. I love this story so much. Tell me what happened, because the woman who made it happen, I think, is in the room tonight.
Oh, Christine?
No, Ebony.
Oh my God, yes, Ebony Haynes. Is Ebony?
Is Ebony here? I think she is.
Yeah. But basically, she at the time.
So tell us who she was, and who she is.
Yes.
And what happened.
So at the time, she was the director of Martos Gallery in Soho, and we were looking for spaces to hold our first presentation. David from my team was like, we really can't stay on Instagram, we have to do some sort of physical activation. And I was really hesitant because I was like, where are we gonna get the money? Like spaces alone are like 4 or 5 figures. And like, I didn't have the money to do that at the time. But I was just like looking around in different spaces and things that sort of felt very on brand for me. And I reached out to Ebony and I was like, hey, like, we're looking to do a show. Is there any way that we could possibly do it here? And she's like, come into my office for a meeting. So I went, we gave her the talk, and she was like, okay, great. Like, you can have it on the state. Amazing. And I was like, great. I was like, I just don't know how to tell you this, but like, I can't. Like, how much is it? Because I can't really pay for this. And then she was like, well, why would I ask you to pay? Right. And I think, like, if it wasn't for her, obviously that show or that presentation wouldn't have happened. And so I'm like eternally grateful. But
that was a game changer for you, that presentation, because what happened? Tell me what happened.
So we received, we had a lot of, quite a few media outlets and magazines came, which is great. And a lot of buyers reached out about viewing the collection. So Barney's came, Net-a-Porter came. We had a lot of different retailers reach out about the work. Mm-hmm. And so that really kind of started our initial relationships with them.
And they ultimately placed orders.
They actually didn't place, a few people tried to place orders, but we were kind of hesitant to do so because we all had full-time jobs at the time. And we were kind of like, how are we going to afford to actually produce the work? Because me and Alexandra, who's on my team, like, we would physically sew all of the pieces ourselves.
Right.
So
let's talk a little bit about the work itself, because I think that what stands out so much about your work is that, as I said before, it's not derivative of anything else, and it's so original, it's so colorful, it's just a feast for the eyes. And I mean, look at this. I mean, this show, I remember this show, I mean, it's outstanding. But what I want to talk about is not just your use of color, but already at this young stage in your career, you already have these like iconic shapes, like something you've called the strawberry dress, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I know a lot of, I mean, do you remember Zendaya wore this dress to the Emmys? It's like one of my favorite dresses of all time. But let's talk about how you arrived at this dress, because what I find interesting is it wasn't originally supposed to look like that, right?
It wasn't, no.
Yeah, so what happened? And how did it end up looking like that?
Yeah, so I would always sort of sketch this sort of little tuft 40s, 50s shape, which was a smaller version of this. And I never had the courage to like figure out pattern-wise how to make it. Because again, like me and Alexandra, we would sew everything. So then David from my team was like, you keep drawing this, we have to at least try to make it. And so Alex draped it, made the pattern, and it kept turning out humongous. And now it's gotten bigger, but it was like this big.
And so your team sent me this sample, by the way, to maybe wear tonight, and I tried it on. And I mean, I'm 5'1" and change, and I loved it so much. But yeah, it's big. It's a look. It's big. It was. I need it made for my little size. Yeah. but so it just. How did it end up like that then? So it just.
We basically couldn't find a way to make it smaller, so we just kept it that big. Yeah.
Love this story. And I love this dress too, Lady Gaga wore that dress. Let's talk about your celebrity moments for a second. I mean, Chris, Lizzo, Zendaya, Lil Nas X, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Michelle Obama. I mean, I love this gown that Lady Gaga wore. Talk a little bit about. Listen, designers tell me all the time that you can't put a price tag on this kind of publicity.
Yeah.
What does a moment like that do for you as a designer?
Well, this moment was actually really special. Michelle Obama actually wore that on Mother's Day. And that was the first time that my mom sort of like saw a celebrity that she really recognized and like was overcome with emotion. So that was really special. Yeah.
It is always about pleasing your parents, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think what I love the most about, I get more excited seeing real people or people on the street wearing the clothes, but I think what excites me the most about celebrity dressing is seeing the breadth of people that can find themselves within the work and feel at home. Right. And because at the end of the day, you have to feel comfortable enough to walk out of the house or walk out of your hotel room or wherever in the thing and like feel like yourself. And so
let's talk about that, because that's another thing I hear from designers all the time is that, yes, the celebrity moments are amazing.
Yeah.
But what really gets the juices flowing, what really gets them excited is when they see someone on the street wearing your work. And so you have one amazing story about seeing a woman at the Whitney Museum, right?
Oh, yeah.
What happened? Because I love the story.
So we designed this sweater for collection 07, like the Boob Sweater.
Which is my favorite sweater of all time.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And when we designed it, we were kind of like, is this too much? Is this whatever? But we made it. And a few people picked it up.
Do you see why he calls it the Boob Sweater?
And basically I was at the Whitney and I was just like walking around, and then I see this woman, and she opens her coat, and she doesn't know that I'm there. But then I like notice that she's wearing it, and so then I go up to her, and I'm like, "Oh my God, like I love your sweater." And then she recognized who I was.
She did.
And then,
She did.
yeah, and then she's like, "Oh my God, I love your work." And she's like, "To be honest with you, this is the first designer purchase that I've ever made, and like I saved up for this, and like I love it so much, and I wear it all the time."
Yeah.
And so that really like affected me, and like. Because I can completely identify with that.
Of course. Your
saving up
first
for
designer
something.
purchase, you save your
Yeah.
pennies up, and that also obviously said to you that this was something she
Really, really wanted.
and really loved,
Yeah.
right? That's amazing. I want to talk about two specific celebrities that you've dressed, because the stories are just so incredible. The Duchess of Sussex,
Yes.
Meghan. You dressed her for the NAACP Image Awards a few months back. I love this gown. You call it Cunningham Blue, right?
Cunningham Blue.
After the late, great Bill Cunningham. Yes, we love Bill Cunningham. We loved him. Tell me how this all happened.
So this happened pretty quickly, this look. But it happened over an email. So basically she emailed me.
She emailed you.
Yeah.
And out of the blue.
Out of the blue, yeah.
And how did you know it was her? Like, was it her?
It was, I know, so I was like gagging. I was like, is this actually you? But like it has like,
Exactly.
it has her, like all the details, and I like Googled and I was like, okay. But then she was given my email from Edward Inningful, so.
Oh, right. A British Vogue, yes.
Yeah. So that's how we made the instruction, but it was an email.
And so then what happened after that? Because it was a real collaboration, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
She told me that she really wanted to sort of make a statement after having her child, most recent, and that she wanted to feel sexy and she wanted to just feel free. So we cut something on the bias out of silk for her, and we did virtual fittings over FaceTime with her tailor.
Yeah. I got. You have to talk about this.
And then.
So obviously, because of the world we are living in right now, it was all done over Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So the fittings were done over Zoom. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So it was over Zoom, and for the second fitting, we saw her with the dress, and then she's like, "Oh, my husband's holding the phone," and so then he like flipped the phone upside down. He was like, "Hi," and so then that's how I met him, and which I love. Like I love a down to earth, just like funny.
You love a down to earth Prince of England.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
So do I. And then one other moment, lest we forget, that was so unbelievable. And designers dream about this, and so few get this opportunity. But you dressed up Kamala Harris for the inauguration when she was being sworn in as Vice President of the United States, for which she made history, of course. She was wearing Christopher John Rogers. So tell me about this outfit. Tell me about where you were when you first saw her. And what did you think? Because I think I need to remind people that designers never know until it's like a celebrity on the red carpet.
Yeah, until they actually wear it.
Until they actually wear it, you never really know. They can make a game time decision. They could change their mind.
Exactly.
So you just kind of make it and hope for the best, right?
For sure.
So talk about that.
So her stylist reached out after the election and like immediately and was like, I know I want this to happen. But obviously, again, like until they actually wear the piece, you don't know. And so David from my team was like FaceTiming, like trying to like match the button and like getting everything done and like having to like take the train to DC to like do all the things. But basically, even though all of the work went into this moment, we kind of didn't really know what was going to happen until she wore it.
And how did you feel? Where were you when you first saw her? And
we all were at my apartment in Brooklyn with bagels, like watching the TV, like hoping like a rush of this color would come flashing on our screens.
Was there a specific reason why you chose purple, or was it purple?
I love that color. I love that question.
Yeah.
So I've gotten that a lot, and I refuse to say whether it's blue or purple.
Okay. Ah.
I love a secondary or tertiary color.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, red and blue makes purple, right? I guess so. I mean, I thought maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about two designers we lost over the past year, Virgil Abloh and Albert Elbaz.
Yeah.
So let's talk first about Virgil. As I'm sure you know, there was a lot of criticism after the Grammys when during the in memoriam they listed him as a quote unquote hip hop designer. And as you well know, he was so much more than that.
Yeah.
He was a real visionary. I'm curious to know, because I think it's easy and frankly pretty lazy to put people in categories.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's something that you can identify with, number one. And number two, if you could speak about Virgil and his impact on fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can identify with people wanting to label you or like reduce you to something and like sort of stuff you in like a neat merchandisable box.
Right.
And I think what I've tried to do is like I've always rejected that. And so what I try and do in my work is just embed it with a lot of nuance and a lot of, for me, I try not to make it about how other people might see me or perceive me, and I try and make it about the work itself. So I think for Virgil, he was always, I've only met him once, and he was incredibly kind.
And you have this great story about how it was almost like you had a premonition, right? Yeah, talk about that.
Well, so I met him in person at the LVMH Prize Finals last year.
In Paris. In
Paris, yeah. And that was the first time that I ever met him, and he was super kind, and he came up to me and he was like, here's my number, and if you ever need anything, let me know. So then he texted me the next day or something, and he was like, I hope you're well, like, great to meet you. And I was like, so lovely to meet you as well. And so then a few months went by, and then I was at home in Louisiana for the holidays, I think, and then I came back. And on my flight back from New Orleans, I was like, I wonder if I should just text him and like see how he's doing. And then like the next day, like the news came out that he passed away, and so I kind of, was like, maybe I should have texted him earlier or something. But
yeah, I mean, there's always that. People always have those thoughts after something tragic happens.
Yeah.
But I think it's clear he had an impact on you, right? And just
he was super
he was
sweet.
So warm and welcoming, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't have to be.
Exactly.
He didn't have to be. Let's talk about Albert Elbaz, legendary fashion designer who died of COVID around this time last year. As I told you when we saw each other at your studio, he was a very close friend of mine. I mean, I get emotional thinking about it because I always still think that I could call him. We shared this stage in 2015. He was one of my very first guests. And on the final day of Fashion Week in Paris last October, I had the great honor of attending this incredible memorial show to Albert. And designers from 45 of the top fashion houses around the world were asked to design a garment in honor of and tribute of Albert. And it really was such an emotional night. I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. And lo and behold, I'm minding my own business. and I see this walk down the runway. You were asked to contribute. I know you never met Albert, but he was really inspiring to you, right?
Yeah.
Talk about what it was like to be asked to do this and how Albert Elbaz inspired you.
Well, I was incredibly, and still am incredibly humbled to have been considered for this. There's so many amazing designers in the world, and to be one of 45 asked to contribute is insane. But Albert was, I like to say, one of my fashion fathers. I loved his work so much.
What was it about his work that you
The fact that like you couldn't really categorize it, the fact that whether it was day or evening or cocktail, the work spoke for itself. His unabashed love for color and silhouette and the person wearing the garment, regardless of identity, I think was really what made his work so special, and his understanding of like both tailoring and everything about him.
I know you have a lot of people, not a lot of people, but maybe a few people who you consider fashion fathers, right? So tonight you are wearing fashion parents. Yeah. You are wearing Dries.
Oh, Dries, yeah.
You're wearing Dries Van Noten.
I'm wearing Dries.
And it's interesting because I was saying that he was somebody we were considering interviewing here at the Met. And then COVID hit, and so we do hope to still do it at some point. But you were saying, "Oh my God, I have to come!" Right?
Yeah, I mean, obsessed with him and his work. Like, I think the first time I found out about him was like 2007, when I was on like LiveJournal, and this girl was wearing this amazing like draped graphic dress, and I was like, "What is this?" Yeah. And that's how I discovered his work. But he's amazing.
Well, and he's a colorist, and like you, he's a colorist,
yes,
right? So
absolutely.
He loves to use color, and he uses it so beautifully. Are there any other designers who have who you would name as a fashion parent who has inspired you?
Yeah, I think Isaac Mizrahi again, Todd Oldham again, Consuelo Castiglione, who founded Marni.
Yeah, sure.
Christian Lacroix, obsessed. Alix, who was known as Madame Grey, but her work in the 70s and 80s I'm obsessed with. But yeah.
Well, look at you being a historian.
Oh.
Look at you, Andrew Bolton. A couple of just final questions before we go to the audience. Number one, it is a dream of many designers to be named the creative director of a big European fashion house. And I'm wondering, is that your dream? Is that something that you dream about? One. And two, is there a fashion house that would be a dream job for you?
One is it a dream or is it my dream? It's one of my dreams, one of my goals. Yes. And two, is there a dream house?
You don't have to say one.
Yeah.
Are there 3 or 5? 3 to 5?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Like what? Like who?
Cha. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say.
I was just trying to get it out there. Yeah. He gave an interview in which he would not reveal, so
yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. But the fact that it's a dream, sure, it's a dream of many designers. And I think the other thing too is I'm wondering what's next. Like when you look at CJR, Christopher John Rogers, the brand, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. I mean, do you look that far ahead?
Yeah.
And how do you see yourself expanding the brand?
Yeah. Well, I think firstly, like a big dream of mine is to create a place where people can like come and work and feel free and feel like they can explore themselves, where they can come up with ideas and like have them be listened to and have them be expounded upon. Because I think in fashion, so often, especially in design, it's so hard to find a place where you can feel like you're being heard or your opinion is being listened to. And it's very much like, do this, and I actually don't care what you think. Mm-hmm. And also aesthetically, I feel like especially in New York, there aren't that many places where I feel like that have a lot of distinct visions. I think in the 90s and early 2000s, there were a lot more places for people to land. And I think, anyway, basically, I feel like I kind of want to be that for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like a big dream of mine. We're still a small team of 6 full-time people. 6
full-time employees. I mean, it's extraordinary, yes.
Oh, my girls.
I think it's really unbelievable. And I mean, these are the people you went to SCAD with,
Yeah.
right? And you met, I know Christina, your brand director, on your first day of school, right?
Yeah, we met in drawing class.
Yeah, it's incredible. One last thing that I want to get to before we take a couple of questions from the audience is I loved reading this. You used to interview yourself in the shower.
Yeah.
And
Still do.
What'd you say?
What?
You still
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
You still? Because and what you would do is you would imagine
The question.
questions that journalists would ask you, right? And you answer them, right?
Yeah.
Or you'd practice answering them,
Yeah.
right? So, number one, why? Number two, is there a question I didn't ask tonight that you wish that I had asked you? So tell us what that is, and then answer the question.
Why? I'm a big believer in manifestation, and so I I always wanted to be prepared, and I think one of my favorite pastimes still to this day is like watching archival designer interviews. So like,
really,
whether it's,
to this day?
Yeah, like I love going on YouTube and finding an 80s interview with like Ungaro or Karl Lagerfeld and like seeing the ways that they like used words to like explain the unexplainable, I think. And even like designers like Rika Wakubo who rarely give interviews.
Right. Yeah.
Like someone who's so cerebral, like how do you explain the things that are in your brain? And so I kind of wanted to be able to, have that ability.
What are there particular lessons you've taken away from that?
I think sort of like allowing yourself to navigate language without necessarily having to like land on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like allowing gray areas to be enough. Being comfortable in liminal spaces. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from watching those interviews, and that's what I like to put into the work that I do.
Great, wonderful. You are so wise beyond your years. I'm really marvel at the words you do choose to use. So
Thank you.
this has been so great. I do want to, I know there are a lot of students in the audience. So are there any audience questions? Should we take a couple of questions from the audience? Anyone? I think we have mics in the front, right? So please, I think you're raising your hand. Come to the front.
Hi. I went to college with someone who I believe worked with you at DBF. Don't want to out them right now, but I just wanted to ask, I feel like fashion is an industry that so many people dream of getting into, but it is, very exploitative. It also, is notorious for underpaying people, offering internships for free. It's really telling to me that you continued your full-time job up until your Fashion Week 2008 presentation, which I actually went to.
Oh, love.
So I just wanted to ask for creatives who don't come from, financially privileged backgrounds that have to kind of continue a full-time job while also pursuing a creative endeavor.
Yeah.
What advice would you have, and how did you kind of manage that transition from, being a designer at DVF and being a full-time, employee to kind of having the courage to try something which may or may not, there was an opportunity to fail, so.
Yeah. Love that question. I think I think one thing is knowing that everyone's journey is different. And I thought I was gonna make an amazing senior collection and get picked up immediately, and that didn't happen. So I kind of had to make my own path, and I think really surrounding yourself with people who can see your light and can understand that you have something amazing to offer. If it wasn't for my friend Eric, who encouraged me to save my first paycheck and buy an industrial machine, who knows what would have happened. Because I was putting it off. He's like, girl, just buy the machine. So I think it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice. There were nights where, you know, we were each other's best company. Like we didn't necessarily go to all the parties, we didn't necessarily like do all the things other than work. So there's a lot of sacrifice there. And I actually still was working like jobs, even if it wasn't at DVF until the beginning of 2020, after I had gotten our first paycheck from the Fashion Fund. So, and if I hadn't won that, I don't know what would have happened.
Well, that allowed you to move out of your apartment.
Apartment, yeah.
Yeah,
like
I mean, that was a $400,000 check,
Yeah.
right? So that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Let's go over here.
I hope I answered your question. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm so inspired by your use of color, and I love the reference to the Bill Cunningham blue. I was just curious, are there any other like wells that you go to often to select color? And, you know, are there other people that you like repeatedly turn to honor or reference in your work?
Color comes from, or the colors that I use can kind of come from anywhere. Sometimes I'll see like once I saw like a piece of plastic on the ground and I picked it up and I was like, let's cut this up and use this as the color standard. Other times it's been like a Post-it and it's like, that's the color. Sometimes it's been like a food stain and it's like, that's the color. So I think it's kind of like leaving your mind and your eye open to anything being inspiring and not saying, oh, it has to be like this picture, or it has to be this sculpture or something. It could be anything.
It just has to speak to you.
It just has to speak to you, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go over here. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Wow, this is a whole look.
Iconic.
I kind of wonder, to preface my question, I kind of wonder if you were looking from the wings to see people coming in, because a lot of people are wearing your designs tonight.
Yeah.
And they look fabulous. I've only been following you for a little more than a year, and it was shortly after I first discovered you, after everybody else had already discovered you, that your Target line came out.
Yeah.
And I'm not wearing it tonight, but I have one. And I wanted to ask you, I've seen Target do Target by so-and-so, Target by so-and-so else, and most of the time I'm just so disappointed. But your stuff is just so fabulous. I wanted to tell you that. But I also wanted to ask you, it looks like they said, okay, here's your budget. And you said, okay, what's the best thing I can make with this budget? I want these colors, and I want these ruffles, and I want these designs.
How did you make that work? Because
Yeah.
you're a man who works in the luxury space. And Target is an opportunity that, again, it's a huge opportunity that many designers don't have. So how did you sort of reimagine that for the masses?
Yeah. Well, we're still quite frugal right now. So I completely understand like the need for people of all levels of income to be able to access fashion. And I remember like going to Target in Baton Rouge and looking at the Rojarte collection and just looking at the level of detail and the way that the sisters were able to execute their vision on that scale. And so I just knew that I wanted to create something that felt instantly recognizable, something that felt, and like I know so many people that want like declarative clothes. Like, so it's like, if I have the opportunity to provide that for people under $50, iconic. So I just knew that I needed to like, just make cool stuff. And like, I wasn't too scared of it being too much or anything.
I need to adopt iconic into my vocabulary a little bit
Oh,
more.
yeah.
Okay, let's go here. Thank you.
Hi. So this is gonna maybe sound a little stalkerish, but
No,
there
we
was
love.
something there was something that you said in an interview with Vogue about how you like to find ways to marry extravagance with practicality in your clothing, which I think is such a beautiful idea. And I was wondering, you know, obviously the fashion industry like can't stop talking about sustainability, and I was wondering if that is something that you're also looking to incorporate more into your work.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, I mean, obviously there have been a lot of conversations about sustainability, and I think, you know, using recycled fabrics and recycled yarns and all of that stuff is great. But I think what's also really important is making clothes that will last, making clothes out of quality material, and making clothes that people can like bring out of their closets in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so that's like a tenet that we always try to think about.
That's sustainability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Great. And I think
Thank you.
one last question. Wait. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was an usher. Okay. Oh, okay. One last question. Sure.
Hello, thank you both again for being here. My question is, do you potentially foresee yourself in film? I know fashion is becoming a big part of a lot of up-and-coming major films, so is that a space that you'd be interested in kind of designing for?
Yeah. We did like a film, right? Or a TV show? We did TV.
Well, you did Gossip Girl, right?
Yeah, we did. We were in Gossip Girl, but we designed costumes or clothing for characters to wear in television. But I think it would be actually really cool to do an entire film.
Well,
That'd
and
be
I
fun.
think, I mean, we're going to have to go, but you did design the costumes for the New York City Ballet.
Oh yeah,
right?
that is one.
And if we could pull those up, I mean, look at these, right? What was your inspiration for
Teletubbies.
Teletubbies? Teletubbies. That was his inspiration.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
all.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
What a fun hour. Thank you, all of you. Thank you to all my friends in row 3. I love you so much. And we will see you very, very soon. My deepest thanks to the Met. Have a wonderful night. We will see you soon. Good night.
Thank you.